Welcome back to part 2 of Sewing Penny, and we're going to be doing the lining for the regular version today. So if you haven't already seen part 1, we covered all of the outer construction on the wide version, and then we're going to do the regular size one. First things first is the inside zipper pocket. So you've got two pieces. The regular version is slightly smaller. There is no filling it full of chocolate bars and snacks. This is purely an essentials pocket. If you need more stuffing, then the wider version is 3 inches wider. So I've measured up from the bottom edge 3/4 of an inch, and then we're going to fold up this bottom raw edge to meet the line and give it a good press, and this will help later on with construction. So once you've given them a press and they look like this, grab one of them, because we're going to draw the box for our zipper. So this is the top edge. I'm just turning it to make it easy for me. So your box needs to be 3/4 of an inch down, and this is the easiest way I find of doing it, and it works on any size then. So I've drawn a line at 3/4 of an inch down, and one below that 3/8 of an inch. And then I'm just joining them up 3/4 of an inch in, and I've got my box. How simple is that? I didn't need to stress about trying to center it. It's all done. Take one of your lining body pieces, keep putting my ruler away, but I need it. Apologies if there's any glare. The joy of sewing in winter. I've got all the lights on. So this pocket needs to sit 2 inches down from the top, so that it sits in this wider part of the body. And even though we've got extra lines, we're going to sew them together on the rectangular area. So around here, like that. You might have just a rectangle, you might have all these lines everywhere, but we are just sewing the rectangular box to sew these pieces together. I don't like using pins. They get sewn together on the rectangular box. So I've sewn the box, I'm hoping you can see that, and I've just ironed away the lines just so I don't confuse you. There we go, that is the box. Now inside, in your instructions, you will see this image. Feel free to use a ruler to make this look nice. But it's something that looks like that. So you've got your stitch line, and then inside I've just very badly today drawn on some lines, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfecto. Because these are just cutting guides. So cut into the corners as close as you can. Do not cut the stitches. If you do accidentally snip the stitches, don't panic. Just re-sew that corner or that end a little bit bigger. So I've gone pretty close. If you do accidentally snip it, just sew a little bit bigger, it's fine. then all we do is this pocket needs to be posted through the hole like that. Until it appears on the reverse. Now if you don't snip close enough, you will have bunching in the corners like that, and then you just give it a really good press. There we go. So it looks nice and crispy now. And then grab your zip. Ideally I would have a colour to match the outer, but I'm running low on zips, so grey it is. Mine is slightly longer than needed because I buy them in bulk. So you might have one that fits exactly. Either way, we generally put pull on the left. If you're making it for you, put it on whichever side you want. But the zipper needs to be central within that hole, gap, slot. And then we're going to top stitch around the outside to stitch them together using a regular stitch length. So if you want to, you can double side these together first, double sided tape, or use pins. As I said, I don't like pins and I've run out of tape, so I'm just going to wing it and see what we come up with. Switch to a zipper foot if needed, and we'll see how we go. Hey, small wins for team winging it. That's pretty damn good. So I'm just going to cut off that. Don't stress about where your zipper position is right now. I am just going to move mine over. I've got a really stiff zipper. And then grab your remaining zipper pocket piece. I'm going to put them right side together with the folded edge at the bottom. I do prefer clips for this next part because, and I will tell you why. You need to attach the pocket pieces together without getting the lining involved, which is why I like clips. But if you are pinning, just make sure you're pinning only the zipper pocket pieces. Don't pin through here. And when I sew, I actually sew it like this, and I fold the lining out the way. So we go down here, and then I know I'm not sewing through the lining. So sew the pocket pieces together only, but leave this folded edge unsewn for later on. So I've sewn them together. I'm just going to trim the seam allowance on the sides. Because the pocket is very close to the edges. I mean, if it gets sewn in with a seam, it doesn't really matter. It's not a huge deal. It's only going to be this top corner, so don't stress on it. But that is the main sewing done. We can move on to constructing. So I've got my lining gusset here, and I'm going to lay the pieces right side together so that they match. So I've got one short end that's smaller than the other, and if you bring them together you can see that the one is smaller. So the smaller edge is at the top of the bag, so we need to sew this edge together, this one, using seam allowance. Okay. Yeah, once you've sewn them together, open up the pieces and push the seam allowances to one side. Doesn't matter which side, but we're going to top stitch down the side of the seam on the same side that the seam allowances are on. So I push mine to the left, I'm going to top stitch down the left to hold them in place. Like that. And we are ready to construct. So grab your lining body bit and gently fold them in half to find the center along the bottom edge. And I've just marked it within the seam allowance on the back. Obviously the center of this lining gusset is the seam. So grab the back piece, this is the piece with the zipper pocket, and we're going to match up the centers, and this is exactly the same process as when we did the outer. The lining is a little bit snugger, that is a word, honestly, to fit. And this ensures that we don't have any like pinches. Put another clip there. So what we do is I'm getting all fingers and thumbs here. Fold your gusset over, and then you can bring the lining body over to meet. My brain went on a little holiday then. So fold the gusset over and then bring the lining over to meet it. There we go. And we're going to sew them together using seam allowance. So there we go, that is sewn in, lovely. So no pinches or folds in the corner, which makes me happy. Now this is the blank one, or the front piece, whichever you want to call it. And I've just got my ruler here, and I'm lining up so that it's 2 inches, or is it 1.5? 1.5 should be fine. And I've just made a marks here. So I'm going to match it all up fully like we did with the other side so that I know it fits. That should be good, so I'm happy with that. so I'm not going to clip them completely. But what we do on this side, because Penny is really snug and the pockets are small, on the wider side, I've tried it, you can turn it through the pocket, but that is dependent on fabric, so it is easy to still do this part. So we'll take this clip out. This is going to be our turning gap. It's a much wider gap than what that little dinky pocket has to offer, which is why we've made these marks. So we're going to sew them together using seam allowance from the top to the mark, and then leave this area unsewn. I would not recommend trying to turn the regular size penny through that little pocket. It won't stretch, so we'll go through the sunroof. So let's do there we go. So we have our finished lining with a more generous turning gap, and then just checking you can see. So I've got the outer bag like so, bits all over it, and the lining. So this one is right side in, this one is right side out, and this is my pocket. Here is the flap. And they're going one inside the other. And this is why Penny, the regular version, can be a bit of a squeeze. But oh, so worth it. Do you know what I've forgotten to do? Oh my gosh. Trim my seam allowances. I'm not trimming the turning gap. I will do that later. And I'm also leaving the tops. Be careful where your seam is on the bottom. You don't want to cut away any useful stitches. I don't know, try again. Pocket facing the flap. And I'm opening my seam allowances. And matching up the seams in the corners. This is the part where, when I first designed Penny, that I thought, oh, maybe I need to make a wider version. I'm a huge lover of making small bags, so for me this is no problem at all, but it can be fiddly for some. So once you've done that and you've clipped them together, we're going to sew around the top edge using seam allowance. I don't have a removable bed. On my old Singer Heather Duty, I would have been able to slide this onto the bed and it would have been a doddle, but I don't have that option, so we have to sew this from the inside like that. That's what we've got to do. I don't like doing it. I prefer to put it on the end of the bed, but it's the way it is. Sewing using seam allowance. Like that. So they are sewn together. Now find the turning gap in your lining. Oh, and I've just realised that nobody's seen the outer of this bag yet. Oh. So it's now right side out, and we have the lining to complete. This is the part where you now open up your zipper pocket and reach through and grab that lining and pull it through the pocket. Pull through as much as you can. And we're just going to finish up sewing up the lining. Matching up the bottom seams as I would have. This is why we didn't trim any of this, because we needed it. Just like that. So where we finished our stitches, because we sewed from the top down to here, we're going to go from there to the other side and finish up sewing up that bottom end. Like that. So I've finished sewing up the lining. I can now trim the seam allowance. And then we push that back inside and pull out the pocket lining. Match up the folded edges from earlier. That's why we folded them. It makes this step so much easier. And then sew that together along the edge as close as you're comfortable with, using a regular stitch length. There we go. And that can be tucked down inside. And then one final bit to do is to push the lining back in. Oh my god, I'm trying to stop this thing from flinging around everywhere, but it's determined. And the last thing we need to do is top stitch around the top edge. It is narrow, it's perfectly fine to do on a removable bed, otherwise you're going to have to top stitch it from the inside again. And this is what I like to do. Unconventional, but and this doesn't work with all fabrics. Mine is soft, so it's easy to do, but I actually turn mine inside out. Make sure the rings are down out of the way. And then I top stitch so that I can see the stitches on the outer and I know they're good, but also it stretches the lining fabric down so that you don't get any folds. Like I say, I don't do this on all fabrics because the outer back is slightly bigger. It doesn't squeeze fully in there. But yeah, top stitch, whichever way works for you. This is what I'm going for. Just like that. Yeah, all top stitched, and I can turn it back the right way. Like I said, oh my god, it's so noisy. For this reason, I wouldn't do that method with all fabrics. If I was using a thicker fabric or a fabric that isn't so forgiving, I would have top stitched as it was, flap out the way onto the lining. Oh, she's pretty. So that's the main bag done. We just got to add a strap. So hopefully you've already made your strap. I have mine like so. So I've taken one end and I folded it around the middle bar of the slider. If you have one of these wide mouth sliders, you need to make sure that it's in this M shape, otherwise it's not going to sit right. So I folded it round, I brought about 2 inches worth through, and I riveted it in place. If you have a wide slider and you want to sew it, so sew a box, and you feel you need more room to work with, just wiggle that through and pull more fabric through, more strap. It's perfectly fine. You'll lose a little on the length, but it'll be easier to sew. So I love using rivets. And I'm going to go to the left side of the bag because I wear mine on the right. And I think this is going to be for me. I said the other one was going to be for me. I don't know which one I want. So what I've done, and I will show you now. There's too much fabric. There we go. So I've got this folded edge here, like that. I've gone down through from the inside to the outside and then weaved it back through. And this way, that folded end that we put around the middle of the slider is enclosed. You don't see it. And then make sure there's no twists. We're going from the outside to the inside. I'm not measuring, I'm just doing it by eye. If you want to measure 4 inches down, make a mark and then bring the end to that mark, go for it. If you want a smaller fold because you're just adding a rivet, if you want a larger fold because you are sewing, adjust it to suit. It doesn't have to be exact science. I will add a rivet in a jiffy, but for now, that's Penny done. This camera doesn't show it very well, but this fabric is teal. It's a really gorgeous teal, which goes nicely with the rose gold. It looks quite blue on here, and I think that's just because I don't have daylight. I'm using the colour of the lamps. I can't decide which one I want now. Oh, decisions. But there we go. Nice and easy. So you've got the regular one and the wide version, same height, a little bit wider. Any questions, any comments, please pop them below. Feel free to ask. There's a link to the Facebook group in the description, so come on and join, see what everyone else is making, show off what you're making. And there is also a link to the new PayHip site in the description below as well. But there you go. That is Penny in all her loveliness.